Hey, Mental Wealth family. Today is Monday, the 9th of November 2020, and this marks quite a special occasion for me as I head out of what has been somewhat of a mental health boot camp. And I just wanted to document probably what has been the most significant message in this stay here, and something that I know a lot of people who I care about aspire to as well in their own lives, and something that I certainly resonate with very deeply. This book that I read a couple of weeks ago, The Warrior Ethos, it talks about 5 archetypal phases in one's life, and that we all begin as warriors, and we need to learn how to fight, and we need to learn how to survive. And then once we've got that down, we transition from there into the husbandry paradigm or archetype. And from that archetype, we transition into the king. And then from the king, we transition into the teacher, and from the teacher to the sage. And the story that's told in that book, which just hit home in such a big way, was of Alexander the Great and his crusade. And he is somewhere in Asia. I'm pretty sure the author says Nepal, and he's taking his force. I wouldn't say an army. It was more like an empire through the hills. And one of his generals on this sort of God-given day, this general stumbles upon a group of naked meditating monks, and they're in the middle of the road, and you can just imagine the scene. It's like rolling hills, and they're trees, and it's beautiful sort of river carving through the valley. And this general looks at these monks and says to them, "Move." They don't. So he gets pissed off, as any great Greek chauvinistic male would, and and he decides to return to Alexander and tell him the bad news. So he does that, and Alexander mounts his horse, and they come kind of trotting up to where these monks are seated. And the general says to them again, "Move. Do you know who this man is? He has conquered the world." So in all this time, none of the monks had flinched or opened their eyes. And once this general had said this sentence, one of the monks opened his eyes and looked at the general and said, "I have conquered the need to conquer the world." And yeah, and for anyone who I know and love and believe is aspiring to kind of that level of spiritual understanding, I think that is what this journey here has really been about, just transitioning between these phases. And yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that we oscillate between these phases on given days, and sometimes we have to dip back into the warrior in certain circumstances, and sometimes we're in the king, and sometimes we're in the teacher. And can't say that I've ever really experienced the sage, but yeah, it's a really interesting paradigm to consider. So, in wrapping up what has been a phenomenal experience here, and one that I'm so grateful to the people who supported me through this, especially my mom and dad, and yeah, I just want to thank them. And I also want to thank Irene, and I want to thank Susie and my uncle Paul, and a lot of other people who have contributed to this effort in very significant ways, and also the group that I'm a part of that support me. So here's to the next chapter.